And we are basically a very small charity. We're all volunteers that work there. As I say, I'm an architect by day and do this by night, so to speak. So our resources are very limited. So this is just to start with a list of the speakers, and some have got slides and some not. So despite my preamble, I'm not here to talk. We're here to listen 5 minutes from each of the panelists, who are deliberately all from different sectors, because, okay, I'll give a bit more of a preamble here. So one thing, what I find very interesting on the radio, I heard a young forester talking, and she had spent 10 years working for a financial institution in London, and then she discovered by serendipitous means a career in forestry and followed it. And she's on the radio saying, why, oh why, did they not tell me about this at university? We don't have anyone from the forestry sector. So there are quite a lot of sectors here deliberately chosen because they represent sectors that are growing, that do have jobs, and are what an ecological future is going to look like. So the bio industry, that's under manufacturing. So there are people there making products out of natural materials. The health and well-being are only people who do green type prescriptions. So where was I? Sorry, just while I'm waiting for this to go up. So deliberately, I'm trying to introduce you to jobs you might not have thought about before, which is why in these panel sessions, there isn't one on health or one on construction, but I've got one person from each sector at each panel session, so that I'm hoping it will open your eyes to these other jobs that are out there, and that afterwards, you can go then to the stand that's either come and grab the person afterwards, one of the speakers, if you feel inspired, or go to the stand that they represent. Now, the first one, Janice, actually you haven't got slides. I haven't been using the speaker. Am I meant to be using it? Well, I've got a loud voice, so I probably don't need it, but if anyone feels they need it. So the first person is Janice Foster. She's a chartered engineer, and and what have I written here? Researcher specialising in building. I know Janice, I've heard her speak at many events, and she is somebody who really believes in making buildings healthy. So that's looking at what the materials it's made of and the environment, the mechanical engineering, how it's ventilated, etc. And she's done a lot of research into this, is one of the leading people in this in Scotland. So thank you so much for coming, Janice. And 5 minutes you've got.
Okay, thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm Janice Foster. I'm a chartered building services engineer. So but my work is in School of Architecture. So I work at Glasgow School of Art in the School of Architecture, where there's a research unit called the Mackintosh Environmental Architecture Research Unit. So I was asked to say, how did I get here? How did I get to be going around to people's houses, looking for mould and dampness, and are the buildings healthy, looking at what they're built from, and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought I'll take it all the way back to when I was 16. Right? So when I was 16, I left school with no qualifications. I just wasn't very academic whatsoever, and I struggled in a school environment. And I left school at 16. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to a careers fair, and they let me be a secretary in London. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. Like, I really don't want to do that. London is 15 miles away. Plus, it's all that time of travelling. I don't want to do that. So then, I think, fortunately for me, at the time, there was a recession. And so I got into catering, and I loved it. And I cooked and made all sorts of stuff. But it was healthy food because I was making it from scratch and cooking from scratch. But that was only a 1 year thing. And it was like, what do you do after that? So I got involved in customer services and answering telephones, listening to people's complaints and their queries. And it was for a pharmaceutical company as well. But I got involved in asthma, and asthma medication, and learning all about asthma, how that impacts people. And I moved on, and I went travelling, and I was just like, I still don't know what I want to do with myself. And so I went travelling for a few years, and I come across this building which was sustainable. It had natural materials, it had healthy indoor environments, it was off-grid, so it produced its own electricity, it did its own sewage. I thought, this is what I want to do. So I came back from travelling, I was in Australia, I came back home and I went to university in East London and said, I'd like to come to university. And they said, what qualifications do you have? And I said, I don't have any. And so they said, well, we can't accept you. I said, really? I said, I'm really fired up, I really want to do this. So they said, well, do a year zero, do a foundation year, and we'll see how you get on. So I did a foundation to engineering at Hatfield University with the view of doing building services engineering. And then I really started to enjoy the building services, and they said, really sorry to tell you, but we're not going to run building services next year, so you need to do mechanical engineering. That was about cars and things like that. And I was just like, I don't want to do it. I'm going to change university, can I? And they were like, yeah. So I ended up in Edinburgh and I went to Heriot Watt University. I studied environmental services engineering. I graduated. I was the top of the class. I was the oldest in the class. It was just like, and it was brilliant. And then I got involved in doing design work. So I worked on the Commonwealth swimming pool in Edinburgh, the refurbishment of that, and to do the water quality, and so I did the water quality, the heating, the ventilation, the solar thermal, looked at acoustics, looked at all sorts of stuff in that building. And it was a 5-year-long project, and I did other projects. I've worked in the Middle East, and I've worked in Damascus, and I've worked in Edinburgh and St Andrews and all over the place. But then the recession hit, and it was just like, I was made redundant from my job. So many people are in the construction industry, and it was just like, I need to change direction. So I started making soap, natural soap, that didn't have any chemicals in. All the colours I made from herbs and spices, and all the materials. Everything was like really researched to the nth degree to make sure they were really healthy. And then I did that for a year, and my husband was made redundant. He's an architect. He was made redundant. So we had no income in the house, or virtually no income. And I saw this job advertised at MIRU, Mackintosh Environmental Architecture Research Union, for building performance evaluation, looking for an architect, looking for someone with a PhD. And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I know so many architects who are out of work at the moment. I was sending it to them and saying, look, here's a good job, here's a good job. And then afterwards, the day of the closing date, I said, do you know what? I'm going to apply for it. So I told everybody I sent it to, I'm going to apply for it. And I applied for it, and I got the job. And all I had was a Bachelor of Engineering. I didn't have a PhD, and it's because of my background, my experience of working with people. So all of these skills that I developed along my journey helped with my job. And so now we go to people's houses, and we are. And we measure indoor environments, we look at materials, we work with architects, we work with clients who are commissioning houses, all to make sure the buildings are as healthy as possible.
Okay, that's super, that's really inspiring, and I love that it's warts and all there. Janice is saying it as it is, and Janice, this is about journeys, as the title says, but afterwards in the Q&A, you really get into the nitty-gritty of what these people do on a day-to-day job with your questions. But Janice certainly has got statistics about how many people suffer from asthma because of unhealthy buildings. There's the notorious case of the boy that died last year because living in an unhealthy building. So it's a serious job that needs a lot more people in that area. So next we've got Ruth Sapstead from Cambridge Curiosity and Imagination. And I have to say that I don't fully understand what Ruth does, but she'd come all the way up from Cambridge, from England, as people keep saying to me. Yes, down there. But the little I do understand about what you're doing is that and this is so important, is looking at the environment and making people's lives better in a much more imaginative way, telling the story, so to speak. At SEDA, we do a lot of events. I always have scientists there, and I have artists, because science doesn't win hearts and minds, the story does. So, Ruth.
So I've got a few slides.
Yes.
Shall I swap with you so I can just flick through?
Or do you want just to say to me? I think it's easier.
I'll swap because then I
Yeah.
know. So I'm here as part of this charity, Cambridge Curiosity and Imagination, which I had the privilege of being part of the group who set it up and ran it for 20 years. I'm not the director anymore, but I'm a keen advocate for the way it works. And I feel a bit of a fraud to be here at a Green Careers Fair talking about my career in a green world, because 40 years ago when I was graduating, I did a degree in psychology at UCL. I was not thinking about a green career. I was probably going to look at milk round jobs, and I think I applied to ICI to do market research. I thought that, that was probably the direction of travel I should take. And I knew I was interested in people, and I knew I was interested in place, and I knew that I wanted to sort of be a part of something exciting. So I was basically looking for adventures 40 years ago. And I went off and joined a research company who were thinking about how to bring qualitative and quantitative data into kind of conversation together. And I ended up researching the way that publicans, small freehold publicans in Ireland were working. And basically I was lonely. I didn't go home at the end of the day thinking I've loved my job. And I was looking around thinking, I need to find something different. And I looked in The Guardian and I saw a job at Glyndebourne. I don't know, does anybody know Glyndebourne? It's an opera company in the east of England. It's an art form that's terribly rarefied. People don't really think it's accessible. People don't really think it's for them. I went and joined the opera company, and they had an amazing education department, breathtakingly inclusive. They were all about taking people out and inspiring them to be passionate about opera. And I put these pictures up because this was one of the last things I worked on. We went and did community operas in all sorts of parts of England. This is Peterborough. 400 local people joined with artists and musicians and theatre makers and put an opera on that started in the cathedral and ended up with people singing as they came down the staircase of the Queen's Gate Shopping Centre. I mean, it was extraordinary. And I just was completely fired up by this way of working that was putting art at the heart of it, the transformational way that artists can bring joy and life and community and connection and creativity, all those C words. So I did that for a while in my 20s. I then went off and joined a couple of women who were doing extraordinary work with artists. So this is One Canada Square before Canary Wharf really kind of evolved. And they had an arts programme that had the catchline, Explore the Unexpected. And this was inviting artists to bring you in to think about what was unexpected on your doorstep. And it was an amazing experience. Again, it kind of really fired me up to think, the artists can make a difference in this world, and that's how you bring communities together. I then went off, I lived in Kuala Lumpur, I had 3 children, I carried on studying, I did a psychodynamic counselling qualification, I did a marketing qualification, and then I did a master's in organisational psychology. And I was thinking, I don't know, what does one do with 3 children and trying to work differently, but trying to be connected to my place. I was living in Cambridge that has the distinction of being the most unequal city, I think, in the UK. I don't think it's just England, but it's an extraordinary city, but it is terribly unequal. And I became very passionate about what was happening to children's lives, the way that children's freedoms and children's powers were being ever squashed. And I started to sit and talk about problems with colleagues. So we were a group of artists, we were a group of researchers, we were a group of heritage people working in the heritage sector, and also educators. And we were looking at children's lives and saying, what is happening to the way that we are educating our children? How is this next generation going to grow up to feel a sense of passion and power about this world if their lives are being as squashed as we were seeing for ourselves, for our own children, but particularly in a city which should be so passionate about ideas and passionate about opportunities, but yet its local children weren't being offered that opportunity. This piece of research gets pulled out quite a lot because it's showing the generational changes. So this is 4 generations of a family in Sheffield, and it very graphically shows you how literally children's physical freedoms are being reduced, and I suppose alongside that children's digital worlds are being exploded, and those were some of the things that we were starting to talk about. So we were a loose connection of people saying we want children's lives to be different. We want them to feel a passionate sense of their own agency, their own creativity. If they know where they come from and love it, maybe they're going to care for it differently. So we started to work with teachers to run different programs in the schools. And we very much started our work with teachers. We very much saw that we could change children's lives if we could infuse teachers to work differently with the children. And this is just some of the work that we've been doing with teachers over the years. So we became a charity in 2007. I should say that I was a reluctant leader. I didn't see myself as a charity director. I saw myself as a psychologist who wanted to work with communities. I had to learn the skills of how do you raise money, how do you employ people, how do you bring a network of people together. But we've gone on a journey over 20 years. And now in the east of England, we've really seen that if you want to impact children's lives, there are all sorts of ways that you can do that. It isn't just about schools, but it's about what the experiences they can have in their community and the importance of their voices being in different conversations. So how, if we listen different to children and represent their voices, how we can work differently with people. And that's just a flavour of, so on the right-hand side, we've been doing some work with a big architects practice called TAM, who are developing. Cambridge is growing massively. We've got huge new developments. How do we bring children's lives and thinking about how do you make places for children better? So we've been working with Town.
We're going to have to see that now.
We've been working with all sorts of people, and downstairs we've got this wonderful collection of fantastical forest hangings that we use as an advocacy to talk to people about what it means to work differently with children and how you can involve them better in their world.
Thank you, that's fantastic. And I think in this day and age of AI taking over so many jobs, the creative sector is one area where I don't think it can. I mean, I know it suppose they can, but jobs like this that are going to be more of, I'm absolutely convinced. And if you want to do arts thing, the workshop that's arts related is the poetry one. So if you fancy doing a bit of expressing your climate anxiety or your love of nature, do join the poetry workshop. So Deborah is from Zero Waste Scotland, which is, again, that's also the leading sort of net zero organisation in Scotland, and really does a lot of, I'll leave it to you to talk about what it does, but it is a very good organisation that looks at recycling and bioeconomy, etc., etc.
I'm just going to start a timer because I know what I'm like, and I know you will tell me anyway.
And I will. Don't worry.
But just for moments, so I don't ramble too much. Hi everyone. As Gail said, I'm Deborah Minnie. I'm the Education and Skills Consultant at Zero Waste Scotland. And basically what that means is I come out and do things like this, careers fairs, engaging with stakeholders within the education and skills sector in Scotland, and just kind of trying to encourage people to see more circular principles in what they're doing, and just raise awareness of the circular economy and how good it is not only for the environment, but for our society, for jobs, everything like that. So yeah, my journey's maybe not as interesting as the last two, but a little bit interesting. So I went to the University of Glasgow. I studied at the business school. I did business and management and French. After that, I thought I was going to be. I went into sort of marketing communications. I thought I was going to go down like the total corporate route. I thought I was going to be like VP of marketing at some Fortune 500 company. And I worked for a corporate company after I left university. They actually offered me the job before I graduated, which was just as well because I didn't get the result that I wanted. And I quickly found out that was not for me. And it will be for some of you, and that's great, love that for you. But corporate life was not it for me. People were very obsessed with money, people were very obsessed with their cars, their £700,000 houses, and all of that. And I just thought, oh my God, these are not my people. And so I ended up working in the third sector. For a bit I worked for a company called Scott Cash, who I don't think are actually on the go anymore. They're a not-for-profit loans company. They were established to kind of counteract loan sharks and things like that. So I was their community liaison officer. Again, kind of similar to what I do now, going out and giving presentations, speaking to people from community groups to executives of housing associations, all of that kind of thing, just to kind of spread the word about that. From there, I then started working with Glasgow Council for the voluntary sector, who are still on the go, and I was their digital engagement officer. So again, kind of more back into that marketing and communications life, I guess, and working on the website, working on social media, things like that. I absolutely loved social media at that point. And then because that job was 4 days a week, I worked 1 day a week with New College Lanarkshire, doing marketing for their digital North Lanarkshire community project. So that was a project to increase digital inclusion within the North Lanarkshire region, because a lot of some of the areas within North Lanarkshire are quite deprived, and a lot of people don't have access to the internet, to devices to be able to use the internet, or even just having that basic computer literacy. So I did the marketing for that 1 day a week. The manager of that project went on maternity leave for a year, and I was successful in applying for her job. So I did that for a year. It was wonderful. Loved that. Again, going out and speaking to community groups, speaking to executives from different businesses within the area, just trying to promote this a bit more, and also just open people's eyes to the fact that not everyone can use the internet, not everyone has access, not everyone can afford it. And a lot of the groups that we worked with were really vital in giving people access to things like, just helping with their CV so they could apply for jobs, and things like that. I then took another job with an external funding department at the college, just to try and stay at the college, because I really liked working there. We used to do things like the Erasmus programme and IP, and different sources of funding. Then I ended up getting seconded to work on our COP26 project. So if you remember COP26, absolute nightmare for people living in Glasgow. And then when that secondment came to an end, I was like, I really liked doing that and actually working within sustainability. I was championing the projects and things that were going on within the college to do with sustainability. And just by chance, Zero Waste Scotland's an organisation I've admired for a really long time. I just happened to look at the website and there was my job, and here we are now. And so I think that, this is my first actual really professional job within sustainability. I think that having a personal interest in it and a passion for it has really helped, but all the jobs that I've done up to this point have given me lots of different transferable skills that have really helped me to do this job now. And Zero Waste Scotland's a wonderful organisation to work for. I work 4 days a week from home. Never thought I'd be able to say that. And yeah, it's just, I think as well, because a lot of people, everyone that works at Zero Waste Scotland has the same sort of values, it's just really nice people to work with as well. Everyone's really passionate about what we do. So yeah, I kind of feel like I've made it at this point. I mean, I graduated 12 years ago, and I've been working at Zero Waste Scotland for 3 years, so it took me like almost a decade to kind of get to where.
Thank you, Dan. I mean, that's exactly what this is about, just to show you that you don't have to have your dream job straight away. There are different ways of getting to it. So the next one, and apologies again, don't call Kate. William Gallimore. So he's the chair of the British Hydropower Association, and the two renewable sectors we've got represented are hydro and solar at this conference. So
I've just got a single slide. Let's press the next single slide. I'm well. I'm just policy and advocacy lead, sadly not chair of British Hydropower Association. It's okay. It'd be great. Be great to be chair at this point. Be great to get back to this point. But no, I'm afraid compared to a lot of the ones here, mine is more of a short, sharp sprint of my current journey into the working life. I graduated my master's only about 3 years ago. So I originally started in 2018. I did history and politics at undergrad in Leicester. So I did that for 3 years. However, then this was 2018 I started, so a certain event in 2020 hit halfway through, and so I was sent home, and my entire third year I was shut in and I was learning from home. So then it came to about December 2020, halfway through my third year, staring down the barrel of what was going to be the next lockdown, no idea of what I was planning on doing. So I thought, you know what, I'll do a master's. I've got nothing else really at this point to do. I don't know what the world is going to look like in October, September 2021. So I decided to do a master's. I always wanted to do one, but I thought I'd bring up the schedule of it. So did a master's in international politics. So in a strange way, I then finished that. And went and did a six-month time doing public affairs for a trade association for electricians, so basically responding to government consultations, attending conferences, attending events, things like that. So it was okay, but then a restructuring hit, so I was unemployed, and as many of you might know, or really quite scared of what happened, I was 3 months unemployed. for a bit, looking for jobs, looking for anything, applying, having a fun, 100 different rejections of the same sort of caliber, trying LinkedIn quick applies, everything like that, and just hitting against the wall. And then one day I was just browsing jobs as I was doing, and I saw a role for the British Hydropower Association policy and advocacy leads, and I was, I didn't know much about hydropower at all, actually. I say I didn't know much, I knew absolutely nothing about hydropower. You might be able to tell from my accent, I'm not exactly native of Scotland or Wales, where it tends to be a lot of the hydropower tends to be. I'm from Birmingham, so the hydropower we had there was negligible at best. But I knew the electricity sector well, so I decided I thought I'd give it a go, applied for it, and they gave me, after the interviews, they gave me the job. And it's quite interesting because, again, my background is history, politics, and international politics, completely different. I knew nothing really about engineering, nothing about the energy sector. I knew about sustainability, I knew about all of that from my degree and general sort of interest, but it never was anything I thought I was going to do, ever, really. But 2 years ago I joined, and now it's very much hydropower sector. It's a very tiny sector. You very much do catch the general enthusiasm they have for building these incredible projects. This technology has lasted 500, they've been around for about a millennia, and now today are being relevant for the net zero transition. It's quite incredible, really. We're building huge storage projects in Scotland, just up the road in Loch Ness, projects that will be able to help us transition to net zero, make sure we can store the energy from wind, solar, and everyone else. So it's quite incredible, really. So a lot of my role is responding to those fun. I don't think anyone's here has ever read those fun 300, 400-page government consultations about things like that. Hugely entertaining to read and respond to. I do because we're quite a small organisation, I also run our social media. I designed our website for a month. Don't ask me why. I don't think anyone else was really around to do it, so they just kind of thought, we'll give it to me to do. So no design skills whatsoever, but I gave it a go and I did a pretty good job. So did lots of different things, and yeah, it's a bit strange, really, because again, a lot of my role is more politics based and government based, so that is my sort of niche. But a lot of the sort of the energy sector, the climate change sustainability wasn't something I was an expert in or ever really thought I would go there. And all it took was a job application, and then suddenly I've been thrust into a world where, for some reason, despite only graduating 3 years ago, I'm talking to some students about what they're to do in their future, despite being, in my eyes, what I was one of you seems like just yesterday, and it's now been about 3 years. So yeah, it's quite interesting to. Obviously, we've got, if you come down to our stand below or scan that, we've got quite a lot of graduate opportunities. I asked a lot. We're a membership association, so we represent everyone from lawyers, engineers, owner-operators, everyone who has any interest in building big things or even small things, we represent them. So anyone like that, I asked them if they had any graduate opportunities, they all jumped up to give me various links. So I've got a page on our website there if you're interested, or if you want to talk to me in more details of what I do, come downstairs and tell you about the fun social media posts I make, which pretty much every week when I try it to distract me from whatever new thing the government's cooked up for the week. So yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you, Will. That's great. Gosh, I'm building up so many questions earlier, and I have to really restrain myself not to. So the last speaker today is Ruth Ashton-Shaw from Nature Friendly Farming Network, an organisation we work with a lot. They're a fantastic organisation. And you did say, we sent a lot of questions to them in advance to the exhibitors, and you did say that farming has a profound impact on the environment, and I can't sort of understate that it does affect climate change, environment, food, health. It is such an important sector. So Ruth, would you like me to go, you say move on? Or
There's only 3 sides, so just keep flicking and we'll get there in the end. So yes, I am an organic farmer, and this, even though I have been running my own farm and I own my own farm for the last 10 years, it's taken me probably to the last 2 years to have the confidence to call myself a farmer. So way back in the day when I was a student, I was adamant I was going to be a designer, and I have been adamant about this since 12 years old. I loved everything art and design and the community of it. I was also a very introverted person, quite shy, and art really gave me sort of a place to hide with other weirdos where we could sorry. With other maybe misfits of the community, but with people who had a strong passion and wanted to communicate through a different format. But I was adamant this was my career path, and that is what I snowplowed into. I was interested in everything from photography, design, everything that fell in between, social media, customer journeys, and that is what I snowplowed through university doing and into a brilliant career doing. I won lots of awards, I made lots of money, I lived the dream, went around the world. But one day it hit me. I was like, well, what do I do now? I had been so focused my entire life on getting my career that once I got it, I had nothing to inspire or drive me. So I started sort of playing around with different ideas and realising that what I was doing now was just a job. And I fell into the sort of mundane trap of I did my job 9 to 5 and I really lived for the weekend when I was going off into the lakes and climbing mountains and riding mountain bikes and hiking mountains and things like that. And we had a lot at the time, international clients. So a lot of my work was done by email, it was done over Zoom meetings. And I really realised that I could live anywhere in the world and carry on doing my design job. So what I did was took all my worldly money and bought a property in a rural location so that instead of living for the weekend, I could almost have my weekend right on my doorstep. I didn't have to travel off and do anything. And carry on with my money earning career. What I didn't anticipate was the property that I fell in love with had some land with it. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So I had land. And then one day a farmer stopped by and said, did you know that you can put sheep on that land and the government will give you money? And I was like, well, why wouldn't you? If the government are going to give you free money. And that was the fateful day when I transitioned into farming. So I I got some sheep. The government didn't give me any free money, and I fell into this sort of rabbit hole of what is it like to be farming. So I've been brought up in a suburban community. I'd lived in the city, and all of a sudden I was in this rural community. I'm going to say, I didn't have much respect for the farmers and the agricultural sector. I thought they were the people that lived in the sticks, and they didn't know kind of what it was like to be a fast-paced, sort of career-focused person. And I went on a huge journey learning how very wrong I was. So we started off trying to farm. So I had my few sheep, and I was like, well, how do I make these sheep make money? And our neighbours, really lovely, took us under their wing. It was a rural community. We were the incomers. They were quite keen to sort of help us on our way, to show us different things. And we went quickly from being kind of urban sort of city slickers to people who hadn't got a clue, to people who are learning how to farm, and then, because of conventional farming systems, people who were very quickly failing at farming. And this was really terrifying because we weren't stupid, and I was willing to put the effort in, the grit and the hard work, but the system just let us down. And the agricultural system that most farmers work in is geared to big farms. It's a high input, high output sort of system. And fundamentally, me and my 30 acres and my few novelty sheep just weren't kind of a valid business in the eyes of the government. So the government do fantastic things, and they do like a new entrance grant, and young farmers loan to kind of get you into farming. These are very, very dumb grant applications, and fundamentally we went in and we said, right, we're going to have these native breed sheep, and we're going to produce wool, and we're going to produce quality meat, and we're going to sell it all locally and sustainably. And they laughed in our faces. Literally had a meeting with them, and they laughed at us and just said that that's not how farming works. And I'm obviously like a bit of a challenge, but I was like, no, I am not a stupid person, and obviously I do believe this is how this can work. So we went on a bit of a spiralling journey. We went on a spiralling journey just to sort of explore how you could work with a farm with a small patch of land and make a difference, have an impact. So one thing that we did learn very quickly in farming, that every action we have as human beings has an impact. Whether you're just walking across a field and you stand on a slug, or whether you're kind of pumping chemicals onto your animals and the rest of it. So we decided that actually our impact could be good, and with no help from the government, we were going to sort of revolutionise the world and show that things could be done differently. So essentially, we dropped off the face of the earth. No people came and sold. I'm just going to read my notes because I did write something profound.
Very quickly, Martin.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
We changed our system and we put nature on our side. We were able to harness this free natural resource, which meant we were less dependent on high cost inputs, which fluctuated with global catastrophes such as COVID, such as the war in the Ukraine. And by using nature, we were actually able to realise that we had a profound impact. We were able to create better food, better quality produce. The environment that we were responsible for surrounds our local community, and we were able to improve this. And we kind of realised that we were healthier, happier people for working more sustainably.
Thank you. That's inspiring again. Thank you so much. I could talk with these people all day, but this is really about questions from you. So do you have any questions for either general questions or specific questions for anyone? If not, I'll just indulge myself. No? I mean, one of the things I find... Yes? Great.
Is it Ms. Foster from the Strategy?
Yeah.
I'm curious about how seriously British universities take the quality of their legal spaces for air quality. So the impacts of education so much low air quality or other factors.
Yeah, I think that public buildings, if we want to call them public buildings, they do have systems that meet the regulations. So they'll have ventilation systems that provide air changes and things, but there's a long way to go to make buildings accessible, public buildings accessible for everybody. So there are things like the furniture, the tanks, which affect the air quality. Even like what we wash our clothes in will affect the air quality when you're coming into a lecture hall, because there might be someone sitting next to you that has an allergy to that. So I think there's a long way to go, but universities and other public building owners, they do comply with the regulations to provide what the guidelines say, but there's more that needs to be done, and there aren't really many people that are doing this kind of work. So our work is called Building Performance Evaluation, and there aren't really many people around the world actually that do this kind of work. So we measure and check things, but and we do that within Glasgow School of Art. So we go to the workshops and we measure for our estates department. But I've recently become involved in a group here in Canada who take these the chemical off-gassing, which is volatile organic compounds, particulate matter that's in the air. They take it quite seriously, and they're trying to develop regulations as well. So we're teaming up with people in Canada, people in Japan, and people around the world to make buildings more healthy for people. There's all sorts of things like plastic that might be leather on the chairs, and plastic on chairs, the plastics in the carpets, the varnishes on the wood you know, what these are cleaned with. The curtains, the plastics on the curtains, you know, it all falls off as dust, and we inhale stuff which isn't particularly good for our health. But then, yeah, there's mold and those things. So, but 27% of the UK population have allergies to chemicals which are in buildings. So that's homes, that's public buildings. So it's a serious problem that we're trying really hard to work towards getting regulations tighter.
Thank you, Janice. I was a bit shocked the other day. We're about to hang the forest, those hangings in Pembroke College in Cambridge, and I was asked, what you know, are they fire resistant or something? So it made me go and look at the fabric, and of course they are sprayed with a fire retardant. They are fire retardant compliant, blah blah blah. But then when you look underneath it, the chemicals that are used to make them, and it was, I mean, it was, you know, we have a green policy. We are really committed to not doing things that damage the systems, but then by complying with fire retardancy, you're putting chemicals into the system that aren't. That was a bit of a kind of,
Yes.
oh
Yes.
We worked on, just on fire retardants, we worked on a building where it was an office building for a corporate company where I worked, an engineering company, and we wanted a timber ceiling. So there was 950 square metres of timber ceiling, and the regulators were saying, no, you have to put fire retardants on that ceiling because there's something called flashover of when a fire occurs, you know, so it's like to stop that ceiling from burning in a fire. So we went to great lengths because we didn't want that within the environment. It made it unhealthy to model and to prove that everyone would be evacuated from the building, so we didn't have to put that in. That was the first in Scotland.
I do find it extraordinary in the whole of the built environment, because that's what I work into as an architect, how little expertise there is in the environmental aspect of everything. Timber, we're told we have to treat against insects. Well, I mean, it's absolute rubbish. There are ways of doing it, but I would say, you know, 90% of the construction industry still works in a way that's not environmentally friendly. It's slowly getting bigger. You know, everyone here, or you know, in the construction area, is in that 10%, and it is expanding because it will have to expand. This is one of the messages I want to get across to you, that all these sectors are going to grow because we have to become fossil-free fuel. We have to have healthy people. So it's inevitable change is going to be made. And if you take an environmental job, you're going to be ahead of the curve. So I think that, as well as believing in it passionately as an environmentalist, also I think it's a very good area to go in terms of career. And the other thing I noticed about, you know, all of us is that there's been a lot of flexibility. You'll notice these interesting journeys show you that people don't know what they're going. So just starting something you can move. It doesn't matter if you make the wrong decision, and you learn skills along the way. You learn communication skills. You learn team building skills. They're all things that you learn, and so don't worry too much about getting that right job the first time. And you've seen, I mean, it's fascinating hearing how someone's learned something in one area and then moved to another, but taken across a skill with them. So don't get too, and also flexibility in terms of, I mean, interestingly enough, we're mostly women here. You're a long way off this, but you know, one day you might have children. And so there are a lot of jobs out there you can do 2 days a week, 3 days a week. I mean, I love the example that Magnus Davison, one of the sort of pioneers of repopulating rural Scotland, he always says you can work in your croft farming 2 days and for an IT company in London 3 days. You know, in this digital environment, there's so much more flexibility of balancing different jobs. So, you know, again, you sometimes have to think out of the box of where you go and how you do things. Any more questions for any of the panelists, or general or observations that you'd like to make generally? Got a lot of knowledge here and experience of the real world. I mean, the one thing that in the questions that when we sent out to people what you're looking for, and this is all on our website, if you delve into the website, you know, passion, curiosity, team building, problem solving, communication skills. I mean, maybe they're all obvious, but everyone I know here and everyone I deal with so many environmental people, they are all absolutely passionate about what they do. And so, you know, I hope that some of you will go into an environmental job, but show passion. You know, hopefully you are passionate, but I find it a real pleasure, the people that I do work with alongside, be they foresters, farmers, biochemists, doctors, they all believe very much in what they do. I don't know if anyone would like to just, amongst the panel, say a bit more, because obviously you only had 5 minutes, or ask another panelist a question.
I thought it was really interesting where we've all mentioned that it's the people that we work with now that really make us happy. Essentially, I think a lot of times when we talk about careers, we're always focused on a career as something that makes us money. But obviously, it's actually what you spend a lot of your time doing. So you should definitely find your people and people who inspire you and push you further and generally support you, rather than just being a competitive sort of industry. And like you were saying about helping people find their job and
I think I was definitely, I mean, I'm probably the oldest here, I was definitely portrayed that a career is a ladder that you climb up. And when I was thinking of the image for my career, I was thinking of those sort of bouncy trampolines that are hung in the forest where you kind of bounce from place to place. And I just think it's been much more fun not trying to create a ladder, but trying to go, I'm interested there, these are interesting people, I'd like to bring those interests together, how do I knit my interests? And go for a way of thinking, if I'm interested in it, other people will be interested in it. I'll find my people and we'll find a way to do this. And I think that's often a much more interesting way than thinking, there's a ladder, I've just got to get on the ladder and I'm going to climb it.
I think it's interesting not to put too much pressure on looking for like your passion or anything like that straight out of, you don't know. No one here knows. If anything, the last 8 years taught that you have no idea what the next 5, 10 years could bring you. You could be halfway across the country, could be anywhere. So it's important to know if you are coming to the end of university or coming to the end of looking for a job, not to put so much on, well, I need to find my passion now, or, you know, if I'm unemployed for a couple of months, it's like the end of the world, or things like that. Just know that, you know, it's a cliche thing to say that everyone's got their own journey into whatever way they go, and there'll be stops and there'll be starts, but the important thing is eventually, you'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I have a thing to add is that, you know, we have a farmer here who is a farmer, but in the farming sector, I mean, related to that, food and farming, we've got a nutritionalist from the Rout Institute, so that's a scientist who looks at nutrition. We've got a soil scientist from the James Hutton Institute, and they are fascinating people who have fascinating jobs. So they believe very strongly in healthy food systems. You know, they spend a lot of time in the field and a lot of time in the lab. So it's amazing how you might sort of stereotype certain jobs, but actually a lot of them do give a good range of activities that they do. I mean, for example, Lorna Dawson, soil science, head of soil science at the James Hutton Institute. She gets now called in as an expert witness on crime scenes because she analyses the soil on the boot of somebody who's been accused of murder or something. So sometimes there are all sorts of things that a job can lead on to that you might not have expected. So please don't have a blinkered view about farming is about manure or forestry is about being a lumberjack, because actually there's a whole range of jobs that go in these disciplines that are needed and they're looking for people. Any other? No?
Can I just add something?
Yes, please do.
I just want to say perseverance as well. Just, you know, when you get your first job, and it might not be exactly what you think that you're looking for, it might not be green, it might not be environmental, just persevere, just stick to your principles. So when I first got my job in engineering, people used to laugh at me. Like, this is 20 years ago, well, actually it was 23 years ago, I first started working in engineering, and my colleagues, I was the only woman in the team of 25, and they all used to laugh at me and call me tree hugger, because I wanted to develop healthy buildings. I wanted to push the architect to select materials which are more natural, which aren't going to off-gas into the environment that I'm trying to ventilate to get the pollutants out. And I just used to get laughed at all the time. And when I worked on a project, I worked on it for 5 years, doing the design for 2 years and 3 years on site on the building site as a resident engineer. the contractors, I was the only woman again, and there must have been about 500 men, and there was canteens. It was a massive building site. I was the only woman. I got ribbed. There were things. Naked women pinned up in the refectory area. There was all sorts of things. They did horrible things to me. I was threatened. I had someone who was going to punch me. There was just a lot of aggression. But every day, I just came back and I wouldn't let them know that they were affecting me. I persevered. I stuck to my principles. I wouldn't let them change anything. This is my design. This is green. This is environmentally friendly. And I just stuck to it. Every night I went home and cried, but I didn't let them know that.
It might not be like this for you guys. I'm not sure this is something.
It's just perseverance, because the industry's changed and people are trying now to create more environmentally friendly buildings, but it is just persevere. If something's not working out for you in that role, just persevere, learn what you can from people and just keep on. And I think actually joining SEDA, I'm SEDA past director as well, one of the best things I ever did, I joined SEDA 20 years ago and been in touch with so many amazing people and learning from that network rather than learning from everybody that was just but yeah, huge network of people with so much knowledge.
I loved your story, by the way, where you said you shared your job and then you went for it, but you didn't have the PhD. I mean, I just think that's a brilliant kind of, if you see something that interests you and you think you might fit, have a go. Because actually people write these descriptions, they think they know what they want, and then they can see somebody different and you fitted it. So I think that's a great example of that.
And while this is now going round and round and round, the final slide should be, yes, join SEDA. We're always looking for young volunteers. We are very top heavy. We have so much expertise, but we don't have enough young people. So if you're interested in ecological issues, do join SEDA. There's a QR code downstairs for it. But in the meantime, I would just like to, and just by the way, this has been recorded. It's going to be available on our website. Do tell your friends about it so that they can hear these talks, because I think they'll be very valuable. And now I'd like you all to bring your hands together for our fantastic panel. So Deb, Janice, Will, Ruth, thank you very much for sharing your experiences.